Welcome back, gang, to the Vols for Life podcast. I'm your host, Tim. My brother Bob's taking a little vacation with his son right now, so I'm flying solo. But we've got a lot to dig into today. We had the record-setting victory yesterday over ETSU. Some notable games around the conference, including so sweet upset down in Gainesville. And we'll kind of look around and see where we are going forward now. We got the huge game with Georgia next week. College game day will be in the stadium. So let's dive right into it. Yesterday we had a 72-17 win over the ETS Buccaneers, and all-time record not all-time really, it's since the modern era record of 72 points in a game. Um, I think in some ways, more impressively, 41 first downs in the game, I think was a new record also. Um, Kind of indicative of the effort yesterday because it was just a consistent 4 quarters, just keeping focused, backup staying focused. Um, One of the better things I thought of the whole game, to be honest about it. Uh, there's not a whole lot you can take away from a game where, quite honestly, your opponent, they are good for their level, but they're on their level and you're on yours. And a lot of kids got to come up and play in Neyland Stadium, maybe for their only time they've ever got to. So I'm glad they had an opportunity to do that. But the game itself was obviously never in doubt. Joey Aguilar, come out. He was coming out good. The wide receivers and running backs dropping a few passes on him. He'd been dang near perfect if people hang on to his passes. Um, Unfortunately, this is kind of a ongoing thing now for a couple of years. Uh, I'm not saying Nico and Joe was throwing at a 85% completion percentage, but their wide receivers did not help them. And starting the year out similar, at least in the first few minutes of the ball game, these first two games, several drop passes. But both games have gotten better as they've went. So yeah, I think there's something to look, a positive thing in that right there. They focus in and start catching the ball better. We're going to dive into the some numbers right now, and then we'll get into some overview of the how the game actually felt. But before we do that, down in the comments, guys, go ahead. Let's talk about what you think we'll do against Georgia next week. We're going to come in with a W, or is this going to be the first loss of the season? Just put, win loss down in the comments, and we'll see. We might track it to see how many people got it right next week. Uh, Also, if you haven't been a subscriber yet, please do so. Hit that big subscribe button, hit the like button, share it with a friend. Um, Love to talk to Vol fans all across the world, really. Okay, let's dive into some numbers. Joey Aguilar, 23 of 31, like I said, multiple drops, two touchdowns, 288 yards passing. Really looked efficient the whole night, really. We had Chris Brazzell, who I think has really took a second year leap that we talk about so much. These wide receivers seem to do in Heupel's offense. Um, I think he had 9 catches for about 125 yards. Mike Matthews, 6 for 111 yards, including that. I don't know if you call it Hail Murray or what. There, uh, the Aguilar kind of threw up, and he brought in and just ran into the end zone with. I think Deshaun Bishop, 3 carries, but he had that gorgeous 50-yard run that he just drug away from people. You know, a lot of or a couple of big plays, but really it's just converting third down, first down, first down, touchdown, over and over and over again. Boo Carter, a couple of really nice returns, electric returns that set up some short fields. Um, I'll say defensively, we played probably about 40 people. It seemed like if you was on the roster, you just about got into the game if you was healthy. Um, Still yet, I don't think they're playing near last year's level yet. But until we get some defensive tackles back, until Moy comes back, and maybe Hobbs, we're going to have an issue in the middle of our defense. And as you guys know, it starts in, control the middle and continue to work your way out. I think one notable number that's been a key for the season heading into it was red zone uh, conversion percentage. Obviously, two games against Syracuse and ETSU can be fool's gold. Uh, but we're a perfect 100%. I believe we're 15-15 in the red zone. We're 80% for touchdown conversion rate, which is, the key part we needed to improve on. Obviously, those numbers ain't going to continue once we get into conference play, but we certainly don't want them to dive off like they did last year when we went. The conference play just got ugly. So maybe we've found a few things. We've certainly tweaked the offense in multiple areas. Uh, our backups that got into the game, I thought our fourth and fifth running backs, Baker and Morse, both showed flashes to be true freshmen. They can play at a pretty high level. Uh, we had probably a dozen or more people catching a ball, but no one really had big days other than Brazel and Matthews. But Rodarius Jackson had a catch where the ball was up and behind him. This kid's going to be nice. When you go snag a pass like that, that just screams future star. And the future may not be that far off. Um, and I also going to give, Merklinger and George McIntyre their props. Um, I thought George really particularly looked good. Uh, that arm talent, that just general having the it factor, he seems to have. Uh, but we don't want to put too much on him. It was ETSU. No offense, Buccaneer fans, but it is what it is. But, let's kind of dive around the conference now. Um, Mississippi State, we're going there in a few weeks, and they were supposed to be one of our pushover games, but they wound up upsetting the number 12 Arizona Wildcats 24-20 last night in a game that, honestly, they blown them out for a while. It's 17-0 for a while. Now I still believe we're going to go down to Starkville and bring home a W. But Jeff Levy looks like he's improved that team out there. Georgia struggled with Austin Peay 28-6. And it's kind of the game you would think defensively, Austin Peay never really had anything going. But man, that was a pedestrian offensive performance by Georgia. Now, do I expect to get that next week up here? Yeah, not necessarily. History hasn't shown that to be the case. But and we'll dive into that game a little bit later this week. Other than to say, man, if we can pull this win off, it sets up for a magical season, according to what potentially could be out there in front of us. A couple of teams a little bit better than what we thought. A couple of teams a little bit less than what we thought. But it's still super early. One of those teams that's off to a nice start is Oklahoma. They took down Michigan last night, 24-13, in a game that really they controlled from the opening drive. Scored on the first drive out, jumped up on them, and held them off. Held Michigan off all the way through. A solid win for Venables in a year that his job could be on the line because the schedule for the Oklahoma Sooners and the Florida Gators are ridiculous. You can be a dang good team and be struggling to have a win of the season with the schedules that they've got in front of them. And at that right there, might as well go ahead and jump into the Florida game, people. Golish and the USF team ran into Gainesville and come out with an 18-16 victory, a last-second field goal to win that sucker, and how sweet it was. How sweet it was to see the Gators go down. Um, Part of me, kind of hates it because I like Sunbelt Billy to stay there for a while because you never know who the next guy may be who might get the most out of that talent down there because, uh, make no mistakes, Florida has talent. Maybe it's not all across the board. Maybe it's a little heavier in some areas and thinner in others. But if you're a coach of the Florida Gators, talent's generally the least of your concerns. Um, but with yesterday's win, with game day coming in, obviously with number 4 Georgia coming in, we should shoot up considerably in the polls. There was multiple teams lost in front of us. Number 17 SMU, they lost to Baylor in double overtime, 48-45. Um, and a few other teams really didn't show, like number 20 Ole Miss struggled with Kentucky, won 30-23. But for the longest time in that game, it looked like they was going to go down in Lexington. So, we could get closer to 15 for this game. So, if we can pull the upset, because I think we're about a touchdown underdog at the moment, that shoot us into the top 10, and the sky's the limit from there. Sky's the limit from there. Once again, guys, thanks for joining us today. Join us again later this week as we do a preview of the Georgia Bulldogs um, to see what the keys of the game will be, break it down, and see what we got to do to get a big W at Neyland Stadium and break this streak that the Bulldogs have over us right now. Heupel's got over the hump against about every other team on our schedule. It's time to do it with the Bulldogs. So, with that said, go Big Orange, go Vols.